security advisor to the Carter administration, and he says the U.S. should play a more strategic role.
We are not destined, nor should we be, to act as the sole policeman of the world, whether it is in our interest or it is not. I think we have to judge each case on its merits. But in this particular case, I do think that some greater but indirect involvement would send the right message and move events in Libya in the right direction. I think a deployment of ships right off the shores of Tripoli would in itself send an important message. If it was tied also to the possible unilateral evacuation of Westerners, it would send a stronger message. And all of that would be an indication to the very uncertain and divided Libyan military that it is not in their interest to be supporting Gaddafi.
And now to Egypt, where several people have been injured after protesters fought with police in the country's second biggest city of Alexandria. This amateur video is said to show protesters ransacking the headquarters of the state security agency. They say police were trying to destroy documents linked to past abuses. Witnesses say the security forces opened fire on the demonstrators. And in Cairo's Tahrir Square, thousands of protesters welcomed newly appointed Prime Minister Essam Sharaf. He joined the crowd, which swelled after Friday prayers. Sharaf promised he'd stay committed to their goals.
I'm here because I get my legitimacy from you. I will exert all my efforts to respond to your demands, and if I fail, I will join you.
Well, Egypt's former Interior Minister Habib El-Adli is facing courts on money laundering charges. He's also accused of committing intentional harm during Egypt's revolution. El-Adli was arrested last month and has been widely blamed by protesters for security forces' use of brutality. AlJazeera's Shireen Tadros is outside the Cairo Criminal Court. Shireen, what's happening there?
Well, we're expecting any moment now Habib Al-Adli, the former Interior Minister, to arrive here outside the criminal court just on the outskirts of Cairo. And maybe you can see behind my shoulder there the hundreds, the masses really of police and security forces that have arrived here. They're right now outweighing the number of demonstrators that have also turned up here, a few dozen, that are calling for the execution of Habib Al-Adli. This is just the first session, the opening session of that trial that we expect to last several weeks. And as you said there, he is going to be facing trial on corruption charges, money laundering and profiteering. But what the Egyptian people want, they want him to face charges and to be tried on more serious charges, on criminal charges to do with his ordering of his forces on Friday the 28th, the day of rage, for ordering them on that day to use live ammunition against protesters. That's the kind of justice that people here would want to see.
Shireen Tadros live for us in front of Cairo Criminal Court. Thank you so much. Now to China, where the Premier Wen Jiabao has pledged to reduce inflation and corruption and raise income levels. He told the National People's Congress in Beijing that these measures are necessary to maintain social stability. Here's our China correspondent, Melissa Chan.
It's a formal and serious affair, with officials from across the country, near and far, convening over the next 10 days. There's often a celebratory mood on the first day of Congress, with leaders looking back at the past year's economic accomplishments. But in the Great Hall of the People, China's premier used his opening speech as an opportunity for an honest assessment of what's going on in the country.
We are keenly aware that we still have a serious problem, and that our development is not yet balanced, coordinated, or sustainable.
The premier went on to discuss the threat of corruption, telling the people sitting before him that they, the officials, will be required to disclose their income, real estate, and investment details. He promised better social services to citizens.
We have not yet fundamentally solved a number of issues that the masses feel strongly about, namely the lack of high-quality educational and medical resources and their uneven distribution, increasing upward pressure on prices and exorbitant housing price increases.
Real estate is indeed a tremendous problem for most Chinese. And on Saturday came the enormous pledge from the podium to eventually provide low-income housing for 20% of the country's urban households.
Every year, Premier Wen Jiabao takes the opportunity on the opening day of the National People's Congress to remind the people the government cares. But this year, more than the past, there are greater assurances from the government to improve things such as healthcare and education. It's a more worried government. Melissa Chan, AlJazeera, Beijing.
Okay, let's go to some breaking news from Libya now. The Associated Press is reporting that pro-Gaddafi forces have broken through rebel defenses in the city of AlJazeera. That's a city about 30 kilometers west of Tripoli. We can now talk to our correspondent, Tony Birtley. He joins me now live from Benghazi. Tony, give us a picture of what's happening.
Very difficult to know, Divya, what's happening there. We get conflicting reports, and getting accurate information is perhaps very difficult here. But we understand that Zawiya is back in the hands of Gaddafi troops, and there've been a heavy exchange of fire. We understand that there have been casualties, but really that's as far as we know at the moment.
And in Benghazi itself, there has been some back and forth about rebels saying they've taken the area and then government troops itself. Is it clear what's happening there?
No, very, very cloudy here as well. They're concentrating more on the east of the country, and in fact troops are towards Ras Lanui, which is this point further than Brega. This is the oil and gas installation. They're moving ahead there. We don't know how well that's going. We've been told there's an exchange of fire, but again there's rumours and counter-rumours, and we're told that that has fallen to the opposition. But really here, you know, looking at what's up against the Gaddafi troops, it's very difficult to imagine that they could actually just roll into a place like Ras Lanui, which is very heavily fortified. It's very well equipped, and just take it over like that. So I don't think so. Getting accurate information is almost impossible here.
Yeah, it certainly seems so, Tony. But what it seems like is that there are mini standoffs happening in many areas. Would you say that this is a situation that just could carry on with maybe some progress back and forth for a while? How do you see it?
Well, I think in the last couple of days we've seen an escalation in the use of military force by the opposition. 2 days ago, Gaddafi troops came into around Brega, which is about 250 kilometres from here, and they launched an attack. That was repelled, and I think that's emboldened the people here. There was a great call to arms. Masses of people came with all kinds of weapons. Their experience in using these weapons is debatable, but anyway, there was a great sort of call to move forward. And Friday prayers in Benghazi, the Imam called for people to stand up and take their arms and take the fight to Gaddafi's troops. So there's now this great sort of air of enthusiasm here for taking this fight on. You can ask the question, when does a civil uprising become a civil war? The people in the transitional committee here don't like to think of it going towards a civil war, because then that's a whole different kettle of fish, really, because that takes it into a different era. But the problem is now, where do we go? People are fighting on the ground. Gaddafi is not moving. There's a sense that the momentum of this uprising is slowing.
Tony Birtley updating us on the latest developments in Libya. Thank you very much. The U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has condemned the killing of at least 6 female protesters in Côte d'Ivoire. They were taking part in a rally calling for President Laurent Gbagbo to accept November's election results and step down. Imran Khan reports.
Dancing, singing, the message is clear. Gbagbo must go. It's a light-hearted demonstration. The women use leaves to symbolically brush away his regime.